That's right. Yeah, let's just applaud ourselves for fun. Why not? That's right. So in just a minute, we're going to start recording the PowerPoint presentation portion of the town hall meeting. And then once I conclude that portion, we'll stop recording because it's too difficult to record questions. Because I'll give you a chance at the end to ask me whatever questions you have. By the way, is that good, right? Okay, good. And by the way, if you don't have it, there are at the back copies of the town hall meeting. So if you need one, Joe's got copies. He'll pass them out to you. Before I get to the town hall meeting, someone asked me, so when do we wear Hawaiian shirts? And I said, when don't you wear Hawaiian shirts? We have talked about it in the summer, in the warmer seasons, Hawaiian shirts, dresses, blouses, jackets, whatever you want to wear on the fourth Sunday, but you can do it whenever you want to. It's just how I am right now in this part of my life, wearing them every week. So, and then we had done in the wintertime your favorite sports teams on the fourth Sunday. The fourth Sunday has been that kind of focal time, but feel free to break the rules and wear Hawaiian shirts every week and then bring in a Chiefs shirt just for fun or whatever, you know what I mean. So, let me do this. Let me make sure everyone's got a copy of this for you. Again, to remind you, at the end I'll just go through all of these slides and then we'll conclude the recording. The recording will be posted on YouTube, and I'll make sure that we get the town hall meeting slides posted on our Facebook, on our website, and links at our Facebook page so you can go to it. And then just, if you'll make note of the questions that you have, then at the end of the presentation, I'll just ask you, and we can go back and go through the slides to whatever questions you have. And if there's not a slide that it addresses what you want to talk about, fine. That's what this is about. All right, are we ready to go, you think? Yeah, let me go ahead and say a prayer, and we'll lead into this time. Let's pray. God, thank you for this church, St. Luke's United Methodist Church. Continue to lead us forward in faith as we think about how we are called to be your people, working with you, working through you, being blessed by you. May we be a blessing to you, God, in Christ's name. Amen. All right, so I've been ordained almost 30 years now. September 25th is my 30th anniversary as an ordained minister. The first 14 years I spent in Virginia, and in Virginia there is this tradition of town hall meetings, especially in churches. It's just part of, I think, the colonial culture that was established in Virginia back before it was even a state and we were a country. But I grew up in ministry life, knowing that one way to help people think about in the church what's going on and develop kind of conversations about what's happening in the church or use town hall meetings. So I thought let's try that today and see how that goes, and maybe this can be a regular annual event kind of thing. All right, so let me tell you what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be talking about the General Conference of the United Methodist Church that happened not too long ago, the Missouri Annual Conference that happened 2 weeks ago. We'll talk about, in September, moving to 2 worship services. Then I'll review my first year with you, and we'll kind of preview where we're going in the second year, okay? All right, first of all, just to remind you, I have guiding ideas for St. Luke's St. Louis that lead me in ministry, and I really want for us as a church to be thinking about how we evaluate who we are and what we're doing based on these ideas. Those ideas are grace, that God's grace is offered to all, that St. Luke's will be gracious to one another. Intentionality, that we're aiming to develop ministries with hope, self-giving love, and strategic vision. Collaboration, that we are only as strong as our partnership with one another, and most certainly our partnership with God. Excellence, that we're setting high standards for ministry, never being satisfied, but always seeking to improve with God's help. And then fruitfulness, faithful, intentional, mature ministry will yield disciple-making, world-transforming outcomes. We will see the fruits of our faithfulness. So grace, intentionality, collaboration, excellence, fruitfulness, these are the ministry ideas, these guiding ideas that I'm evaluating how I do what I do, and I want us as a church to think about it too. We're thinking each time we're taking a step of faith together that these guiding ideas are guiding us along our way. All right, let me first talk about the General Conference of the United Methodist Church. The General Conference of the United Methodist Church Every 4 years, delegates elected from annual and central conferences gather to conduct the legislative business of the United Methodist Church. This is the official voice of the denomination. So every 4 years, they gather together. They talk about all the things happening in the work of the worldwide United Methodist Church, and then they also vote on legislation, different kinds of petitions, about all different kinds of things. We have a book of discipline that's a gathering of both history and of doctrine and of practices. And we revise those in the General Conference. We have social principles that we revise every 8 years. We have other business like budgets and then different kinds of work that gets done related to American retirement plans for clergy. In any case, that's what the General Conference does every 4 years. It is actually the voice for the United Methodist Church. No one else speaks for the entirety of the denomination except for this General Conference every 4 years. The 2020 General Conference was postponed until 2024 because of the pandemic, so the conference that just took place was the 2020 General Conference. In 4 years, in 2028, the 2028 General Conference will take place. In other words, even though it happened in 2024, there was actually no 2024 General Conference. Okay, I know that doesn't mean anything to you. I just thought I'd throw it in for fun. Okay. The United Methodist Church is structured with three kind of like branches of governance as you want to think about how the church does what it does. The General Conference is like the legislative branch of our denomination. The episcopacy, or the bishops, are like the executive branch. And the Judicial Council, which is a group of elected like judges who are like a judicial branch, and they're elected at General Conference, and they serve to determine whether or not petitions and other actions fit within the Constitution found for the United Methodist Church in the Book of Discipline. Okay, that's the General Conference. So usually what happens at General Conferences is a lot of nothing, to be really honest with you. Every 4 years, delegates gather, and we find that General Conference is a great opportunity for there to be roadblocks and for there to be gridlock, just like at other kinds of legislative branches you might think of in the world or in our world. And so that's what I expected to have happen in this last year, but let me go to the next slide, Pam, because what happened is that lots of things got passed at this last. So one thing is that the General Conference passed the smallest general church budget ever, which will then reduce the apportionments for all churches. You might ask, why did that happen? Well, in the last 5 years, there was this ability for churches to disaffiliate in the United States based on a number of reasons. And 25% of the American churches in the United Methodist Church disaffiliated. So the United Methodist Church is smaller. Then there were almost 3,000 churches that closed in that time. So since 2019 to 2023, almost 10,000 churches in the United States that were United Methodist are no longer part of the denomination. And so that made a big difference in terms of what we actually need to do for the General Conference. In addition, they also changed the retirement plan for American clergy. This was to address the fact that clergy in the United States, in the United Methodist Church, are getting older. And we're rapidly getting older and retiring. And the retirement plans we had, especially with the shrinkage of the denomination through closures and disaffiliations, meant that we needed to find a future plan that would be more affordable and sustainable. And they've developed, I think, a really good plan that's got more of us clergy participating in what we actually save for retirement. So that plan was passed and will take effect in, I think, 2 years. There was also a reduction in American bishops from 39 to 32. This reflects the aging of our bishops and the fact that some of our bishops will be asked this year to start overseeing more than one conference. We have that happen sometimes anyway. Also the General Conference, they passed legislation that gave deacons, the next slide, Pam, thank you. Deacons are given authority to preside over sacraments, communion, and baptism. We have 2 orders of ordination in the United Methodist Church. Elders, I'm an elder. Elders are considered to be traditionally the lead pastor, the ones who are the ones elected to district superintendencies usually, and often to the role of bishop. We tend to be the ones who are the ones officiating over communion and baptism. Deacons are an order of ordination that was developed in the 90s. We had used a denotation of deacon in the past to be me just now. Now it's back. I'm going to hold real still. I used to have a microphone, a wireless mic once in another church, and it had a wire that was loose. And if I held real still, it would only fade on me a couple times in the service. We replaced that microphone. So, in any case, our deacons are ordained clergy who, one, don't itinerate. They aren't moved by a bishop. They go and find a place of service, and a bishop approves their position. And two, deacons have traditionally been staff people at churches, chaplains, involved in different kinds of parachurch, auxiliary ministries or extension ministries. And more recently, in the last decade, deacons have been asked to be lead pastors. And so, for a variety of reasons, we decided at General Conference, the General Conference decided to give deacons the authority to preside over sacraments without having an elder bless or participate in the sacraments. We developed, passed a petition to enter into full communion with the Episcopal Church USA. You might ask me, what does that mean? I'll just say up front, I'm not sure what that means exactly. I think what it means is that when we have certain kinds of communities or contexts where there's a small Episcopal church and a small United Methodist church, that they can enter into some kind of agreement, joint, collaborative parish with a United Methodist pastor serving, but I'm not exactly sure what that will mean for us in terms of full communion. It does not mean that the two denominations are becoming one. Then we approved something, the denomination was, the regionalization petitions were approved, and regionalization was a petition that would make the United States and each of the international Central Conferences regions that all had the ability to contextualize the Book of Discipline. We had in our Book of Discipline a process for Central Conferences, that's conferences outside the United States, to make adjustments or amend the Book of Discipline to fit their context. Usually what happens is the Book of Discipline was designed for the United Methodist Church in America, but laws in other countries were different, and so we allowed for changes to be made. Regionalization will then mean that we have an equal number of all different regions all around the world that are responsible for making decisions about the Book of Discipline for their context. That was, by the way, passed, that regionalization petition was passed on the second day of General Conference. Usually all the legislation, all the petitions are passed on the very last day of General Conference, right before they have to leave the conference center. So they spend 2 weeks not passing anything. And so this was a very different General Conference this year. Then General Conference passed legislation that we had been, as a denomination, debating since 1972 around human sexuality. Clergy are now allowed to choose whether or not to officiate at LGBTQ weddings, as they can for all weddings. I can choose whether or not to be officiant at any wedding now, or not be officiant. Local churches can determine if they will allow LGBTQ weddings on their property. So each local church is autonomous in this regarding this, just like you can make decisions about any kind of wedding guidelines. Next slide. Human sexuality legislation continued. The annual conferences, boards of ordained ministry can choose to credential LGBTQ candidates for ordained ministry now. And bishops are now allowed to appoint openly LGBTQ clergy to local churches. So all of that was done in this General Conference. The bishop for the Missouri Conference, Bishop Bob Farr, released a statement when this legislation was passed, making it clear that he is going to work with the district superintendents and other members of the appointive cabinet to make sure that there are the right fit for churches and LGBTQ clergy in the future. They want to make sure that both the churches and clergy are thriving and not put together in ways that are harmful to church or clergy. Okay, so that's the General Conference. A lot happened there. Usually I would say nothing happened, but a lot happened at this last General Conference. Missouri Annual Conference took place June 7th through 9th in St. Charles. Again, it'll be there next year too, by the way, so I'm very happy for a third year for it to be in St. Charles County. That's a great commute for me. What happened? Not a lot happened. Apportionments were lowered for local churches again. Our conference has been very aggressive in making sure that apportionments are more affordable and that the annual conference budget reflects a kind of very careful usage of what's been given, and so the apportionments again are lower. I was reappointed for the next year. Look forward to be here again. And then Missouri is part of the South Central jurisdiction of the United Methodist Church. The jurisdictional conference is in July. At that conference, they will appoint bishops or assign bishops, and it'll be interesting to see if our bishop, Bishop Farr, is appointed for one more term, which would be 4 years, and that he would retire at the end of those 4 years, or if he'll be assigned somewhere else. It'll also be interesting to see if they link the Missouri Conference with another conference that has become smaller in the last 5 years. It could be that it won't affect us, it will affect what the bishop has to be attentive to. All right, that's really everything from the annual conference. Let me talk a little bit about our Sunday worship services. So in conversation with the TSF and executive teams and worship design team, and then in a survey from the congregation, getting feedback from all of you, the decision was made beginning September 15th that worship will be at 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. We'll have 2 worship services here. We have not decided on the format yet. I'm still in conversation with the worship leadership about what that will look like. And we will live stream both services on YouTube. Currently, what we do is record the worship service and then upload it at a later date to YouTube. We're going to do live streaming. That'll make it easier for us in terms of just the process and what we need in terms of training folks. Again, thinking more about this 2 Sunday worship service, the next slide explains the reasoning for this. Why would we go to 2 worship services? Well, first, we need room to grow. Currently, since November of 2023, when we started having worship at 10 o'clock, we've been averaging 83. And we have about 100 seats here in the sanctuary, so that's 83% of capacity. That's based on average weekly attendance. So that includes, by the way, the lowest Sundays when we've had 49 here a couple of different times because of bad weather or Memorial Day. It includes the highest attendance Sunday like Easter and Christmas Sunday. Doesn't include Christmas Eve services, but Christmas Day. So that's a significant number. The kind of rule of thumb is once you get into the 80%, 85% average attendance, you need to do something, or else you will start going backwards because it starts to feel too full eventually. By the way, if we do this, it returns St. Luke's to a pre-pandemic worship schedule. We had 2 worship services for many years prior to the pandemic. And then St. Luke's, let's just be honest, St. Luke's has something our community can't find in other churches. And so we need to make more room for more people. And the only way to do that with ease is to add 2 services. So that's the reason. We also have, by the way, we have all of the worship leadership in terms of staffers and choirs, chancel choir, handbell choir, and the praise team. So we already have a structure for 2 worship services, and we're working on the behind-the-scenes volunteers so that we can get to that. So, as you're thinking about these Sunday 2 worship service schedule changes in September 15th, what can you do? First, pray. Ask God to prepare us to invite, bring, and welcome people who aren't going to church anywhere. We're already doing that. We need to continue to be ready and ask God to help us think about that and do that. Then volunteer. Join the tech team or the greeters for Sunday mornings. We'll need more of both as we get ready for September. Contact me, and I'll let you know how you can get connected and trained to be a tech team member or a greeter, or both. And then commit. Make a commitment to God to regularly attend one of the worship services at least 2 Sundays a month for the next year. So in your mind, think, I can do more. And then you say, well, if some of you already attend more than 2 Sundays a month, great. Let's go 4. or 5 Sundays. Do every Sunday then. Whatever is the right commitment to you, at least make 2 Sundays a month at one of the worship services, just something you're going to do for the next year that will help us with all of that. Okay, I'm looking forward to the 2 worship service schedule here. I think it's exciting that we get to do that we need to do that. And I think that it's an opportunity here at St. Luke's that's really crucial for our next steps and lots of other ministries. As I think about this first year we've had together, I'm just pleased at how things have gone. I've got a few of the significant things that have happened here. Worship service times being changed from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock led to increases in worship attendance. In the 2 months prior to our change in worship schedule, we were averaging 70. Actually, the 3 months prior, we were averaging 70. And then immediately when we went to a 10 o'clock service, we went to over 80 in attendance. So it was a good move and one that you all had actually been asking for. We hired a new executive assistant who's a great partner for me in ministry and doing a great job of helping me with administration and communications. And I hope you're working with her in a way that really helps your ministries too. We've done a lot of upgrades in administration and communications ministries, church logo, website, and domain name changes, office equipment leases, all kinds of crazy information technology changes. Been working diligently in the last year to do lots of behind-the-scenes things that make for continued improvement in what we seek to do every week. Other things that happened in the last year as your pastor, our Christmas and summer giving wish list projects have been funding new projects. You've responded really well to these wish lists, and I look forward to how we will use these summer wish lists to make some things happen around here. One of the awful difficulties of life is just realizing life is temporary, and so 5 funerals in the last year have been significant to us, and a humble part of ministry for me. I've been able to teach adjunct at Eden Theological Seminary in the last year, and have been grateful to be able to do that. It's actually been very beneficial to how I've been your pastor. So it was a good first year. That's just some of the things. I could list a lot more, but I think that's a great list of just clarity about what we've been doing. As I think about this next year together with you, here's what I'm thinking about. First, developing a hopeful, intentional vision for ministry. That I am working to make sure I'm very clear with you that the hope of the resurrected Jesus Christ is leading me to a hopefulness about our future and an intentionality about how we do things, that we are together envisioning a ministry future that is both realistic, that is expectant of God working through us, and that we intentionally plan together strategically. As I think about that, then I think about how we move from this kind of vision to modeling Christ to the world through self-giving ministries that glorify God, that more and more we are thinking about how, as we're growing as disciples of Jesus Christ, we are working to develop ministries that are self-giving to the world and to one another, and that all of this is meant to be glorifying God, that that's how we understand what St. Luke's is meant to be about, is a community of faith in Jesus Christ that is fully alive, fully glorifying God. Then I look to continue to identifying standards for excellence in ministry. I have found in almost 30 years of ministry that the church is one of the first places where we decide we don't actually want to have high standards sometimes. I don't know, we just kind of settle. And so when I've talked about excellence in ministry, I have always experienced a lot of staff members and volunteer leaders get nervous. I don't know why. Everybody wants things to be excellent. Nobody likes bad. And so in the next year, I look for us to continue together in collaborative efforts to develop high standards of excellence in ministry. And then holding one another accountable to those standards of ministry excellence. You know, the key to all of this is for you to understand that as United Methodists, there are 2 basic groups at every church. There's an appointed pastor and other appointed clergy, and then there are the permanent ministers, which are the people of the church. You know, my membership is not in St. Luke's United Methodist Church. My membership is in the Missouri Conference. But your membership is here, because this is where you live and where you are. I'm itinerant. I may be here for 10 years. I may be here for 1 more. I don't know. Bishop didn't give me any clue. Just like he didn't give me a clue I was coming here when I showed up one day. And so as we think about this next year together, building hopeful, intentional visions for ministry, leading us to model this ministry of faithfulness to Christ through self-giving ministries to the world, identifying standards of excellence in ministry, and then holding ourselves accountable to those standards. This is where we're going together. All right. You can contact me, by the way. If you're watching this online or you're wanting to talk to me later, here's my contact information. I'm grateful to be able to be serving here at St. Luke's this year and for the next year, and look forward to our life together. All right. I'll wait.